Let's talk a little bit about, on the show we talked about connecting with your constituency, reconnecting with the community after you were successful in your electoral bids, and then you're moving into legislation. I'm curious to know, when you've gone through that process and then throw on the orientation process and throw on mentorships and things like that, how are your priorities changing? Have they changed from where you were when you were in the campaign side of things to getting ready for legislation?
I'll start off just really quickly, and I think I speak for a lot of my colleagues around the table. When campaigning, you know, a lot of us, when we decide to take the leap and run, we all have some basic background of some of the big political issues. We all have opinions on those. Those are also things that a lot of our constituents know about. Now, they also bring up issues and educate us about things we didn't know about at all levels of government. And so we learn through the process of talking to people in our districts, through the process of campaigning. But also, frankly, a lot of those big picture issues are already being worked on by the governor, by more seasoned legislators and leadership. So we're not necessarily going to take our small number of BDRs and throw them onto those same big ticket, big picture issues. So I think we each bring our expertise and our backgrounds to the table. For example, I'm passionate about conservation issues and water sustainability especially. So I have one BDR based on that because it's a passion and interest of mine. We talk to constituents, we talk to nonprofits that have suggestions, we talk to businesses, we talk to other interested groups. And so, for example, in District 15, which kind of goes from right outside of downtown towards Boulder Station, there are a lot of mobile home communities. And so I learned about some of the issues that people in mobile home communities face, and I have a BDR that I submitted to work with that. So I think over that process, it kind of focuses it more onto what are our areas of expertise and what are the issues that affect the people in our districts.
And Assemblywoman Hardy, also your district is, I think, a higher level of wealth and median income. But how are you connecting your constituency?
Yeah, so my district, Assembly District 22, covers pretty much the Green Valley Ranch area. It does go out along the 95 out to like Paradise Hills out that way. I have Sun City McDonald Ranch and part of Sun City Anthem. So it's a good mix of families. There's a lot of business owners, seniors. So there's, you know, issues that cover a vast variety of topics. A lot of those going door to door during the campaign, most of those were about education, taxes, healthcare, and those are things that I had already decided to run on. Being a small business owner, obviously business issues are something that I'm very passionate about. And so for me personally, I don't think that my priorities changed once I won. I think, you know, I still have the same principles, the same things I believe in, but once you get into the legislative process, you kind of realize that, you know, now you got to work with other people to accomplish some of those priorities and get those bills through. And so I think it's, you know, it's just staying in touch with your constituents, always keeping in mind why they elected you, you know, what you said that you're going to do for them if you were elected, and then working as a group to, you know, reach agreements and make compromises that's best not just for the people in your district, but as much as you can for everyone in Nevada.
And Assemblywoman Baucus, have your priorities changed at all?
I think one of the big things is, like everyone else, obviously education funding was a hot topic, and clearly our senior legislators are proposing bills. But one thing I wanted to share with people that I thought was odd, when you do your bill draft request, and you can look at it, I think there's over like 900 online right now, or maybe up to 1,000 now. If you read them, there's probably a good 10% that will say revisions to education. They can be broad, and then they get narrowed down, and we're required right about the time session starts to have things panned out. At least 2 of our 5 bills almost ready. They have to be ready to be drafted as Assembly bills or Senate bills, depending on what House level you're at. For myself, I've always been passionate about senior issues, and I think as it hit home close to me, I ended up with my husband taking care of my father-in-law. We live in a next generational home where we had a full apartment for my father-in-law, and he ended up getting dementia. And unfortunately, that does happen when people age, and I wanted him to have as much independent living as possible. And so one of the BDRs that I have, and it was something that was close to my heart, and I did talk about it when I was knocking on doors with constituents to see where people felt, was to take a hard look at our power of attorney for healthcare decisions and maybe open it up to address dementia, because even though it may be a terminal disease, I think it's missing to help families and loved ones who support their loved ones.
And especially in a community like Sun City Summerlin, where we have a lot of retirees, the percentage of dementia and Alzheimer's cases are going to skyrocket. I know.
So I was able to vet it a lot.
Right. Assemblyman Levitt, how about you? Any changes in priority?
I think it changes a little bit just in the scope when you're campaigning and right before the election, and actually probably right close to when you're submitting your BDRs or you're kind of narrowing them down. It's very broad. You know, you're out campaigning. People say, "Well, what do you want to do?" And you're like, "Save the world." You know, what do you know? And so it's you know, in my district, you know, education, I think in everyone's district, is a priority. I think it gets the most airtime, and everyone is very cognizant of the situation. Right. And so, you know, and I live in my district has a high senior population as well. So, you know, property taxes were huge for them because they live on a fixed income, and if their property taxes go up, then it's a big downside for them. But I think as we narrow it down and we start thinking of what we can do versus what we wanted to do, you know, save the world, to help education a little bit in one line of one bill, right. You get a little more focused, and so, you know, what started out as I want to overhaul our education system, it's how about we do more workforce development in schools. You know, and so it went from here to here, right. And so I think that's probably the case with all of us. We take these big, broad ideas, you know, and we take the Superman shirt off and we throw it in the laundry basket, and we say, you know, we put on our Clark Kent glasses and we get to work. And so that's what I think.
So that's what those are. I just have one other quick point that I want to make, which is that as freshman legislators, we don't sit on the main committees that deal with the budget. And the budget, and for good reason. We all got the budget after the State of the State address in 3 large binders, thousands of pages. So it takes some experience, especially with the legislative process, to be able to look through that and figure out how to modify it and how to get that through. So when it comes to things, a lot of people want to see more funding for this, more funding for that. A lot of those financial decisions are while we have input within our caucuses and we can talk to our fellows, we're not doing that detailed committee work that really influences that. So that's another thing that kind of gets put to the side, and we look towards some of the policy changes that we can make, not as much putting money into or out of this or that thing.
Yes.
It's a good point. And with that said, I want to invite you all to come back after your 120-day session, and let's talk about the experience you've gained and talk about maybe what the next steps are to get on those committees where you are involved in the budget decisions.
Great. Just not the day after.
Yeah.
Maybe
we'll wait a little time.
Sure. No, we'll wait a while for sure. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate having you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.